Hi. So, I am treating this intervention session like it's the first intervention session after the evaluation. And I would see Chris in his room at his skilled nursing facility. I want to see him somewhere where he feels comfortable and where he has a lot of places where he could potentially rest, especially since we're only a couple days after his exacerbation. I don't really want to get him down to the therapy gym just yet, but maybe in a couple days or a couple sessions, we would get him down into the gym. But for now, we're going to see him in his room at his skilled nursing facility. Um, since this is the first session after the evaluation, I want to talk to him just a little bit about the results of it and what we had discussed, some of the goals that he had set, because maybe he wasn't feeling great and he had forgotten about them. So we'll discuss that first, and then I also want to see where he is feeling that day, especially with his breathlessness and where he feels like his lung capacity is, because maybe a couple days ago he was feeling fine, and this morning he woke up and he feels like he can't breathe. I want to know that before I start my intervention. And I would also bring something that is more objective and measurable than just him saying, I feel out of breath. I would introduce to him the modified Berg dyspnea scale, so that he can tell me how he is breathing in terms that I can definitely understand. And I would educate him on the usefulness of this scale. Um, and I would use the scale throughout the intervention to monitor any changes in his lung capacity. So he might start out at like a 2 or 3, and that's okay. But if we start doing something and he starts to get into that 4 or 5 territory, I might want to back off a little bit and start doing some breathing techniques to get him back to where he was. And again, I would educate him on how he can use this scale at home and how it's really, really good during his ADLs and IADLs so that he can monitor his pacing throughout those activities at home. So after I talk to him about the evaluation results, we discuss any concerns that he might have, any questions that he has on his mind, and I see where he is that day. I would like to start with some preparatory tasks. So a good one for him would be get him to do some pursed lip breathing. And ideally, I would like to get him sitting edge of bed for this. I'll educate him on the usefulness of pursed lip breathing. It's possible he already knows about it, but I want to see if he is correct in doing it. And that just looks like you breathe in through your nose and then out through pursed lips. So it looks like, and that's a good way to calm your breath during the intervention, and it opens up his lungs and gets them ready for the session. And we can do this. We can grade it if he isn't feeling great that day. I want him sitting edge of bed so that I can see his static balance while he's sitting, and also his posture. Maybe he has a decreased lung capacity because his shoulders are hunched. I want to see how he is sitting. But if he is feeling really bad that day, we can get him into a chair where there's a back where he can rest a little bit. Or if he's really, really bad, we can even do these exercises supine. But I really want to see his static sitting balance and his posture. From there, I would move into doing a really quick manual muscle test and range of motion screen. I would expect pretty much his entire body to be around a 3 plus. I think on a really good day, Chris could be a 4 or 4 plus, but given the exacerbation and how he's been in bed a lot, I don't think that he would be much higher than a 3 plus, and on a good day, I don't think he would be much higher than 4 plus. So I would keep in mind his physical limitations throughout the session, and I would try to develop an exercise plan that addresses these and would increase his functional strength and endurance. So before we move from the bed, I want to talk to him about his daily life and if he uses any equipment at home, what it is, how he's doing it, is he doing it correctly? Maybe he doesn't feel great about using it. I want to know all of that. And I want to see if he's using it correctly, because maybe he has the reacher, but he doesn't understand that using a really long reacher to reach something that's really, really up high is actually worse than using a short one that is close to your body. So I want to see where his understanding on adaptive equipment is at that point. And then I want to discuss any leisure activities that he has and how adaptive equipment can get him back to doing those again. And then I would show him some adaptive equipment that maybe he hasn't seen before, like the long-handled shoehorn or a button hook or whatever he needs. I would show him those things. Then I would like to practice with him. So one way to do this is to do a dressing task, and I would introduce energy conservation techniques and task simplification, and any adaptive equipment that he would need. If he is edge of bed at this point, I would do a functional transfer to get him into a chair. I would like to get him up and walking the 4 to 5 feet to a chair, just so that he is standing up, he's getting that gravitational input through his feet, and I just want him sitting in the chair for this dressing task. I would expect Chris to be a min-mod assist with the transfer and ambulation. He would need my help with initiating the movement and concluding the movement, so breaking that seal on the edge of the bed, I think he would have a lot of difficulty with getting that initial rocking movement and going the first 45 to 60 degrees off of the bed. He would really need my help with that, and that is what makes him a min assist. And then similarly, getting into the chair, lowering himself, because he has that decreased upper body strength, lowering himself into the chair would be really difficult for him without just plopping into the chair. So that is how he would need my help. So once he's transferred into the chair, we'll discuss his breathing, where he is after walking that few feet. Again, energy simplification, task modification, and we would do the dressing task. And we'll do it seated. And I want to see how he sequences the steps of dressing while he's seated. And we'll talk about some problem-solving techniques that he can do so that he can get dressed while seated. And then we'll move on to the actual task itself, which is putting the clothes on, whatever he feels comfortable with. But I would prefer for him to put the shirt on, pause, rest, do some breathing exercises. And then with the shorts, I want to actually have him stand up again. Again, I want him moving as much as he feels comfortable in this session, but not to the point where he feels out of breath and like he can't do anything the rest of the day. So once we get his pants on and he's sitting back down, I show him the long-handled shoehorn and a sock aid, and have him practice getting on his socks and shoes like that. And while he's in the chair, we're going to work with the spirometer a little bit. I would give him an exercise plan that includes the pursed lip breathing, doing that breathing exercise to open up his lungs and get him ready, and then breathing into the spirometer a couple times. And I think that would really help to strengthen his respiratory muscles. So we'll practice that a couple times while we're seated in the chair until he feels comfortable with using the spirometer. And then we would talk about his existing exercise plan and how we might need to modify it for the coming weeks until he feels better. He might need to decrease his exercise when he's at home, and to follow the exercise plan that we give him at the skilled nursing facility. So I feel like at this point we're starting to near the end of the session. Breathing into the spirometer a couple times, getting up and down a couple times, he's probably getting pretty tired. And again, I'm monitoring his breathlessness with the Borg scale, and any observations that I have. If I feel like I need to end the session early, I will, because again, I don't want to completely exhaust him for the rest of the day. And I'm looking at his performance throughout time. If he's comfortable in the chair, I'll leave him in the chair with everything that he needs. But ideally, I would like to transfer him back to bed so that he can, again, get up and walk the 4 to 5 feet back to bed. And that is where I would end the session with any questions that he has. And that is the first session after the evaluation with Chris. I would leave the spirometer and a copy of the Borg scale with him so that he can do his exercises and he can practice on monitoring his breathing and using the scale. If I were to do a second session with him, maybe in 2 or 3 days, I would get him moving a lot more. I feel like he would start to feel better at this point, and I would want to see him up and moving more. Eventually, I would like to get him to the point where he's engaging in that functional mobility, maybe even all the way outside, and we can do his favorite leisure task, which is gardening, and we can work on energy conservation tips and ways that he can simplify his gardening while he's in this exacerbation. But that is one of my end goals with him. And as we get closer to discharge, I would ideally like to set up a home eval with Chris so that we can see how we can further simplify his environment. I especially want to see if maybe his exacerbation was caused by his environment. So did he go up the stairs on his 2-story home? Did he walk up the stairs and not have a chair at the top of the stairs so that he could rest? And maybe that triggered the exacerbation, which led him to me. I want to know all of that, and I think going into the home with his permission and everything and doing it with him so that he can see maybe this is where we can add a chair, maybe this is where we can decrease clutter so that you're not picking up your legs so much. I think that would be really beneficial for Chris, and it would help him as he progresses too. And I think he'd be pretty open to a home eval, especially if he lives alone. So to recap this whole session, the intervention takes place in his bedroom. We start by discussing evaluation results and questions. We talk about how he's feeling that day. I introduce the Borg scale of breathlessness and how he can use it in his daily life. We start with preparatory tasks, which are the pursed lip breathing, the Manner muscle test, and the range of motion screen. And then we go into the adaptive equipment phase, which is what he has at home, what are his techniques, here's how they could be better, here are some new adaptive tools. Of course, education on all of those. We do a transfer and we ambulate a little bit into the chair, and then we go through the dressing task. I introduce the spirometer and his exercise plan with the spirometer and pursed lip breathing. Again, throughout this whole thing, we're talking about energy conservation, task simplification, and then we talk about modifying his exercise plan. And then we do another transfer and we engage in functional mobility back to bed. So that is really my plan with Chris. I have the editing skills of a groundhog, so this might just be a video of my face, in case you're welcome. No, so that is what I would do with him. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks.